it's FYF Sports here. It's Lamont. I'm back with another video. Today, as promised, we're going to be bringing you the top 15 shooting guards in the NBA this year. It's going to be really interesting. I kind of pulled the top 50 shooting guards out of the entire NBA, looked over that list thoroughly, and just came up with the list that I feel is the best. But again, you guys might differ. Before we get into the video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell to this video. We will be dropping a lot of videos of this nature going forward in the future. And then we will be making comparisons between these players of this era and players of the 90s as well. So again, you want to hit that notification bell so you can stay tuned and stay in tune with a lot of these debates. Again, if you don't like what we're, if you don't like our list, if you feel like you have a better list, make sure you hit us up on Instagram or Twitter. Let us know. We may bring you onto the show, and then you can voice your opinion about who you feel should be on or off the list that we've made. But again, as we've stated, shooting guards and just guard play in the NBA today plays a major role in a team's success. In the 90s. It was a big man era. If you most teams had some type of dominant big or some type of dominant force inside to find some type of success. That was just the way the game was played then. Now it's a guards game now. So most teams rely on strong guard play. So I wanted to focus on that shooting guard position because again, we have a lot of shooting guards in the league now, elite skill level, and I just thought it would be, kind of challenging to come up with the top 15. How do I rank them and why do I rank them in those positions? So we're going to get started with the number 15 player on this list. And so again, the number 15 player on my list, and again, this is just my list. You guys may have this guy placed higher. You may not even have him in your top 15. But again, this is my list. But the first guy we got up is going to be Lou Williams of the Los Angeles Clippers. Lou Williams of the Los Angeles Clippers, as you can see here. Again, he's been a six-man his entire career. He favors coming off the bench as opposed to starting. We know that he could start on a lot of NBA teams, but he favors coming off the bench where he feels he excels. And he's done so at an elite level. He's been able to come off the bench for the Clippers and many other teams and be that scoring punch that they need to kind of get over the hump. And like I said, I think he can do great things here with the Clippers. The reason why I have him lower on this list is because of defense and then inconsistency. So there have been times in his career where he's been extremely inconsistent. We've even seen that this year, later on in the year with the Clippers. Because of his defensive liabilities, the Clippers were forced to bring in a guard like Reggie Jackson because they were struggling to defend or to maintain that consistent defensive effort off the bench. So again, he does bring a lot offensively, but at the same time, just like a lot of players have weaknesses, and his primary weakness is playmaking for others and being able to defend just even at a good level where, they don't ask him to be great defensively. They're not asking him to go out there and be a Pat Beverly. But again, you got to be serviceable. Otherwise, you can be a liability and you will find yourself, just getting ISO'd in different screens, high ball screens. And again, it's too much to overcompensate for. So we've seen this year that the Clippers had to bring in additional guards to supplement his inability to play defense. That doesn't take away from the fact that he is one of the best six men in NBA history. He's an elite level scorer. And again, this is why he's been able to stay in the NBA so long, because again, whenever you can score the ball like he does, you're always going to have a job. So we're going to move on to my next guy. And this next pick, I already know it's going to surprise a few people, but again, for me, I feel like he deserves to be on this list, and that's Evan Fournier. Now, a lot of people don't know this guy because he plays down in Orlando. And again, we just don't watch a lot of Orlando Magic games. They don't have those flashy players. They don't have those big name players. But this guy down in Orlando has been able to put together a career being showing that he can shoot the three ball consistently, showing that he can put up big numbers when needed. You know, when they need him to score 25 points, he can go out there and get you 25 to 30 points. He goes out, he defends on an elite level, and he plays night in, night out. He's an international player, so he didn't come over into the NBA with, this big fanfare or a lot of hype. But quietly, he's putting together a very, very solid career down in Orlando. If you haven't watched this guy play, go check out some of his games. Again, he's not flashy, he's not fun to watch, but he does all the small things. He does the intangibles. And again, what has affected him has been his inconsistency. What we see from him time and time again is that he can fall into the shadows of Vucevic. He can fall into the shadows of a Jonathan Isaac or Aaron Gordon, and we can see his numbers drop or his efficiency drop due to being in the shadows of other great players. So again, that doesn't take away from the fact that he's a really good guard. You can plug him. He's one of these guards. He's one of the types of guards you can put him on any team, and he can excel on any team because of all the different types of things that he can do. He's just not great at one thing, but he's a very serviceable guard. He's going to be in the NBA for a long time. So again, keep your eyes on Evan Fournier. If you haven't seen him play, make sure you go check him out because I feel like he's extremely underrated and doesn't get enough credit. So that's my number 14 guard in the NBA. So now we're going to go to 13. So now we're going to start getting to some names that you guys are more familiar with. 14 guard for me, or 13 guard for me, is Jaylen Brown. As we've seen in, Eastern Conference Finals, we've seen this guy, along with Jason Tatum, go up against LeBron James. We've seen him on all the highlights on ESPN. He's a superior athlete. He's a superior and elite defender, and I would consider him an elite level defender. At shooting guard, because again they have Jason Tatum at small forward, but at shooting guard he can guard the 1, the 2, or the 3. Scoring wise, he's been extremely inconsistent. I would like to see this man develop a better or more consistent jump shot. But with regards to his game, man, he can do everything on the basketball court. He has the athleticism. He has the mental mindset. He's tough. You can't break him. And he competes. You will see this man compete night in and night out. And under Brad Stevens, he's been able to excel. So he came out of the West Coast, a college out of the West Coast. I think it was Cal, with I think a lot of hype for the most part. But again, we've seen him develop into a very, very good NBA player. And the best thing about Jaylen Brown is that he's still getting better. We haven't even seen the best of Jaylen Brown. Now, once we see the best of Jaylen Brown, he has the potential to be a top 3 shooting guard in the NBA. But again, he has to start developing his game a little bit more. He has to be able to take that lead role a little bit more. And hopefully we can see him do that with the Celtics. So that's my number 13 shooting guard in the NBA, Jaylen Brown. So we're going to go to my next pick. My number 12 pick is going to be more of a hybrid guard, D'Angelo Russell. Now, over the last couple of years, we've seen D'Angelo Russell. We've seen him play a lot more point guard. When he was with Brooklyn, but just kind of by default, he was at the point guard position because they didn't have any other guards. We saw the same thing when he was with Golden State. They have him in that point guard slot. His natural position when he came into the NBA, when he was with the Lakers, he was a shooting guard. And he's excelled at that role. He's a high-level shooter. We've seen what he can do with regards to shooting the ball when he was with Brooklyn. He was an all-star player. So when he has the ball, because he is ball dominant, he's great. Defensively, he's not very stout. And it's not that he can't defend. It's his, if you watch him play, it's his defensive IQ. He makes a lot of mistakes on defense that if he just studied the game a little bit more, if he had a little bit higher basketball IQ, some of those things would happen. So I think that's something he can work on and change himself. But again, that's about dedication and film study. If he can take care of that portion of his game, that's when you'll see him excel. But again, the only negative you can really say about D'Angelo Russell is he's ball dominant and he's a volume shooter. And it takes a lot of shots for him to get his point. So, he's been great. He's been great over the last few years. Coming out of LA, when he got traded from LA, it was kind of a disappointment. LA expected a lot more out of him, but when he got to Brooklyn, he was really able to show everyone what he could do in the NBA. I like him down in Minnesota now with Karl Anthony Towns. They're best friends, so I think that relationship can blossom into a great pairing onto the court, and hopefully we can see that going into next year. They have possibly a lottery pick. It just kind of depends on how the cards fall, but again, with the Minnesota Timberwolves, I think D'Angelo Russell can be great. He's a hybrid guard. He's like that Russell Westbrook type. Russell Westbrook just kind of transitioned into a point guard. That's why I'm just going to tell you now, I don't have Russell Westbrook on this list. I consider Russell Westbrook a point guard now. But again, he is more so a natural shooting guard. He's just been forced into the point guard role due to injuries with the teams he's been on. So D'Angelo Russell is my number 12 shooting guard in the NBA. So we're going to go to my 11, my number 11 guard. My number 11 guard is Jrue Holiday. Everybody knows this guy in New Orleans. The one thing we can immediately say about this guy is defensively, he's a beast. He's an elite defender. The only knocks that you have on Jrue Holiday has been his availability. He's been injured, and these injuries have hampered his ability for him to excel on the court and his teams to excel on the court. We haven't seen him lead a team to a great regular season record, nor have we seen him lead a team into the playoffs and make it, even just a decent playoff run. So again, leadership could be an issue. This year we don't know what could have happened. The way they were playing towards the end of the year, he was playing great. The good thing about him is that he's the type of hybrid point guard who can transition into a complete point guard if you need him to be a point guard, but then he can transition and play off ball and be a pure shooting guard if you need him to be. But again, he's with regards to attacking the basket, he's elite. His all-around game, he can shoot the basketball, he can drive. He can basically do everything that you need him to do as shooting guard. He plays at a high level, high IQ. But again, with him, it's about availability. The injuries have hampered him and his ability to perform on the court. So again, I have to take that into consideration. Your availability and your ability to help the team on a night in and night out basis has to factor into this. But it does not deter from the fact that he is a great shooting guard in the NBA. And he's still young. I see a lot of great things from him to come. And hopefully he can get New Orleans back on track. There were rumors that he could possibly get traded, but those rumors were quickly dispelled by the coaching staff and GM over in New Orleans. This guy is going to be in New Orleans. They need him to help bring up guards like Lonzo Ball and Frank Jackson on the bench. And I think with him there, he can get New Orleans back on track along with Zion Williamson. So we got Jrue Holiday, again, is my number 11 shooting guard in the NBA. All right, so next up is Victor Oladipo. A lot of you guys know Victor Oladipo from his time at OKC. He was traded to the Indiana Pacers. When he was traded to the Indiana Pacers, the one thing I really, really appreciate about Victor Oladipo is that he accepted the role of being the number one guy. He definitely did not shy away from it. He wanted to be the number one guy. So when he was told that he was getting traded to Indiana, he loved the idea that he could go into a system, lead a team, and then be the leader of a team. And there's not too many players that actually will take on that role, wanting to be a leader. Now, again, I don't think he's had enough time in Indiana for us to see if he can be that leader we think he is. We've seen flashes. We've seen a season or two of him leading the Pacers to regular season records far, far above what anyone predicted. So, again, I think he's doing a really good job. But, again, the same with Jrue Holiday with him. We saw, as soon as he was getting close to hitting his peak, injuries kicked in. He tore a muscle in his quad. And he was out for a season. He's going to sit out the rest of this season as well, so he can get healthy going into the 2021 season. So hopefully if Victor Oladipo can get back healthy, and this man competes night in and night out, plays both ends of the court. He doesn't complain. And again, he's going to leave it all on the court. That's one thing about Victor Oladipo that I like. So I like the fact that you can tell he's developing his game. Every year he comes back with a new dimension or new aspect of his game improve. We've seen his three-point shooting improve. We've seen his mid-range shooting improve. He's always been a great athlete, so he's always been able to attack the basket. But then we've also seen his finishing improve. So finishing not just above people because you can jump over people, but also being able to finish with finesse around people, avoiding charges, using the Euro step, using a lot of moves in his bag to find ways to score the ball. And I also appreciate the fact that he's become a better playmaker. He's found ways to make his teammates better as well. This is why we see the bigs like Miles Turner on the Indiana Pacers. We see those guys excelling because of players like Victor Oladipo. He's becoming a willing playmaker, and because of that, he's not just excelling, but his teammates are excelling as well. So I got Victor Oladipo as my number 10 shooting guard in the NBA. So next we're going to go to my number 9 guy, which is Donovan Mitchell. Now, Donovan Mitchell's he's kind of a mystery type player. Because again, I still did not feel we've seen the best of Donovan Mitchell. We saw him have a great playoff series a few years ago where he completely dominated for a stretch. But then going into that next year, we saw a drop-off. A lot of inconsistency. Not just a drop-off in his scoring, but just a drop-off in all production altogether. Why is that? Maybe coaching could play a role in that. Maybe personnel around him could play a role in that. He's been on a team with Utah where they haven't been able to find a consistent point guard. They've tried Ricky Rubio. They've thrown in a number of guys. Now they have Mike Conley over there, and then Mike Conley's been injured a lot. So what's kind of affected him is just his different roles. He's a natural shooting guard. He's almost been forced into that point guard role because the point guard play has been so bad. So he's been taken out of his natural element at the 2. So again, I still don't feel we've seen the best of Donovan Mitchell. I think if we can see him with not just he doesn't need a great point guard. He just needs a good point guard. Ricky Rubio and Mike Conley Jr. just haven't cut it. Mike Conley Jr., you would think, having a $150 million contract that he would be able to come in and immediately make an impact. But he's been a shell of himself for the last couple of years and an extremely big disappointment. Like I said, this is one of the reasons why we haven't seen him blossom the way I think he can. So again, he's one of those mystery players. In a year or two, he could skyrocket up or he could skyrocket down. It's going to be all about how he's used and if he can adapt his game to whatever's thrown his way. But again, that doesn't take away from the fact he's a great player. Similar to Victor Oladipo, he's found ways to improve his game on a year in and year out basis. Superior athlete, great athlete, and we see him now developing his game. He's starting to get the mid-range shot. He's starting to develop the 3-ball on a consistent basis. So hopefully, if he can avoid those lulls in production, those 2 or 3 game stretches where he just completely disappears and then he comes back, if he can start avoiding those lulls in production, he can maintain consistency. Donovan Mitchell can definitely find himself in the top 5 on his list in a year or two. So we're going to go to our next player on this list. Next player on this list, so our number 8 guy, is going to be Devin Booker of the Phoenix Suns. And Devin Booker of the Phoenix Suns, this is one of those guys who, could easily be number 1 in the league at shooting guard if he put his mind to it. And I think with Devin Booker, it's the mentality that stops him. He has all the skills. The shot making, the play making, the ability to drive and finish, the 3-point shot, ability to play off the ball. He has all of that. It's the mentality. Again, it's just a certain type of toughness and mentality that you have to be great in the NBA. And it's just not something that it's not something, there's only a few players who just naturally have it. There's only a few players that naturally have it, and he doesn't. We got to see him develop that tenacious mentality to be able to compete night in, night out. Because, again, when he doesn't compete, we can really, really see his numbers drop. When his head is not in the game, you can tell. His numbers show it. But when he's locked in and laser focused, his production is skyrockets through the roof. You know, we've seen this man drop 70 points in a game, even though they lost the game. But this man has the potential to be the best shooting guard in the NBA if he puts his mind to it. We just have to see this guy. We just have to see him, you know, lock in on the mental side and just be a better player. Another thing that affects Devin Booker is his ability to lead. He could definitely be a better leader. And again, when I mean be a better leader, it's not about being friends with everyone. Being a better leader is finding ways to make guys better. I don't know if he's done enough to make guys better. Now, when Phoenix Suns started off this past year, they started off this past year playing great. A few injuries, and they allowed those injuries to thwart the entire season. And a good leader would have found a way to help guys step into different roles, make them comfortable in those roles so they can excel until guys get back healthy. So we didn't see that from Devin Booker this year. You know, hopefully that can change over the next few years. Looks like they could potentially be, they could get another top 10 to 15 draft pick going into next season. Hopefully they can use that to bolster the point guard spot so he can avoid getting stuck playing point guard when Rubio's hurt. But again, he's a natural. He's just a natural basketball player. He's going to have a great career. But with regards to being in that top 5, that upper echelon of shooting guards, until he gets the mental side of the game corrected, it's going to affect him. But Devin Booker, we have him at number 8. All right, so our next shooting guard in the NBA, top shooting guard in the NBA at number 7, it's going to be Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine, man, you know, when entering the NBA, primarily known as an athlete, dunking over everybody, jumping out the gym. But this man down in Chicago has been able to elevate his game. And when I mean elevate his game, he's developed every aspect of his game, from his three-point shooting to his playmaking ability to being a leader. This guy has been able to elevate his game. Now, the one knock on this game is that they haven't been able to win. But when it comes to the Chicago Bulls, it's hard to blame Zach LaVine with the front office moves that they've made, with the coaching, the inconsistent coaching that they've had. I don't necessarily blame him for that, because at the end of the day, regardless of who's been the coach or the moves that they made, he's been able over the last couple of years to come in and night out and produce at an extremely high level. The front office has done a very poor job in the draft. I think over the last 2 drafts, they may have drafted like 4 point guards, which is not really what the Bulls needed. So again, I'm just curious to see what that front office does to put the right pieces around him so that he can continue to excel. But with regards to his play individually, he's been extremely great. He's been great. His numbers have been consistent. He's had some injuries, but he's always been able to come right back, get back to that top form. So again, with Zach LaVine, because of his inability, because of winning and his success in the NBA has been down, I have him at number 7 on the list. But again, he has top 3 point guard in the league talent. And with the right team, he can find himself having a very successful career. All right, so now we're at number 6. And now we're starting to get to some of the heavy hitters in the league. So number 6, we have DeMar DeRozan. DeMar DeRozan. This guy's had a great career. Great career, man. Consistently averages over 20 points a game. He can defend. He's a great athlete. He plays hard. The only thing you can really knock DeMar DeRozan for is the fact that when he was in Toronto, they just weren't able to get past the Cleveland Cavaliers and LeBron James. They just weren't able to get over that hump. And that led to him ultimately getting traded for Kawhi Leonard. Again, whenever Kawhi Leonard's thrown in a trade scenario, even though the Toronto Raptors told DeMar DeRozan that he would be a signature piece of their team going forward, whenever Kawhi Leonard's name is thrown into a trade scenario, you have to consider it. And the Toronto Raptors did make that trade. and traded DeMar DeRozan for Kawhi Leonard, and that ended up being the piece and the boost that they needed to win a championship. So it ended up being a good trade. It put DeMar DeRozan in a situation in San Antonio that I personally don't think he wants to be in. I don't think he wants to be in San Antonio. So, again, since he's been in San Antonio, we've seen inconsistent play. We've seen that lazy mindset or approach to the game. Doesn't look as like he's having much fun playing in San Antonio. So I don't think we will see DeMar DeRozan in San Antonio for too much longer. I think San Antonio may potentially be going into a rebuild, especially if Greg Popovich decides to leave and go coach another team. I just don't see him being a mainstay on that team. So at the end of the day, he's still a great player. He's had some great playoff success, a lot more than a lot of other players. He just hasn't been able to get over that hump to get into the finals. But with regards to numbers, his numbers are great. He's a mid-range player or back-to-the-basket player. The knock on his game is that he's not been able to develop the three-point shot. This is one of the reasons why a lot of teams have been shying away from trading from him, as this game has been transitioning over into a three-point shooting game with that three-point shooting mindset. He's failed to adapt his game. He's failed to develop that three-point shot that teams need him to do so that they can space the court. And because he hasn't implemented that ability to make the three consistently, it makes them much easier to guard. And in the NBA, whenever you're easier to guard, other teams will exploit that as much as possible. So, again, DeMar DeRozan, great career, a great stat line. Again, his teams have done some great things in the regular season. They just haven't been able to get over the hump and get to the NBA Finals. All right, so we got DeMar DeRozan at number 6, and we're going into our top 5. This is our top 5, so this is where, the top 5 is what I really want you guys to focus on. Really want you guys to focus on the top 5. Let me know what you think. Who would you have in your top 5? Do you think my top 5 is off? But again, we're going to start it off with number 5. Number 5 on my list, we got Jimmy Butler, man. You can't ask for a more competitive or complete guard. So as you can see here, they have small forward shooting guard. Jimmy Butler came into the league as a shooting guard, but teams quickly saw that he had the ability to guard the 1, 2, or 3 position easily. 1, 2, 3 position easily, sometimes the 4 if needed, but this guy can guard 1 through 3 with no problem. He's been forced into that small forward role sometimes, especially if teams want to go small. But naturally, he's a shooting guard. He competes at an extremely high level. You cannot find a guard that competes harder. He motivates his teammates. Although some of his teammates, when he was in Minnesota, they did not like the way he pushed them. But at the end of the day, he makes teams immediately better. We saw Philadelphia, one shot away from getting to the NBA Finals with this guy. If Kawhi Leonard doesn't make that corner three-pointer, we could be talking about Jimmy Butler being one of the most elite guards in the NBA if they can go to the finals and beat Golden State, which was very likely because of the injury. So Jimmy Butler, great guard. He's been able to implement and add that three-point shot to his game, so he's no longer a liability out there. Hard-nosed player. He can go to the basket anytime he wants. He can finish. Great passer. Great mid-range shooter. Great with his back to the basket. And again, he can have stat lines of 15, 8, 7, 8 and 7, but they will be extremely impactful because he's all over the court. He does everything you need. He gets blocks. He gets steals. And you just look at the Miami Heat team this year. Nobody really predicted that Miami Heat team with Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson and those guys to really do anything. But, he's helped those young guys excel. When you look at players like Kendrick Nunn, when you look at players like Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson, these are guys that nobody really thought coming in would have an instant impact. And he's helped all 3 of those guys, all rookies, come in and immediately have an instant impact. And that doesn't happen by accident. That happens because you have players like a Jimmy Butler on your team who consistently show the work ethic needed to succeed in NBA. So I see nothing but greatness coming from the Miami Heat. They got a core young talent with Bam Adebayo that, again, if that continues to develop over the next few years, we could easily be talking about the Miami Heat being in the NBA Finals, making consistent finals runs over the next few years. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen in the future with the Miami Heat. But with Jimmy Butler signing a new contract, with all of the rookies on the rookie deals, with Bam Adebayo developing into one of the best big men in the league, again, there's nothing but brightness in the future for the Miami Heat and Jimmy Butler. So I have Jimmy Butler at number 5 on my list. And so we're going to go into my number 4 player. My number 4 player on this list is Klay Thompson. Undeniable what this man can do as far as scoring the ball. He's going to go down as probably one of the top 2 to 3 shooters in NBA history. So he can score the ball at any level. He can drive. The primary thing, this man, he can adapt his game to any situation. He can defend 3 positions with no problem, similar to Jimmy Butler. And the best thing that we've seen this guy do it at every level. We've seen him do it in the regular season. We've seen him do it in just common playoff games. We've seen him do it in the NBA Finals. This guy, again, you can plug this guy into any team in the NBA. Any team in the NBA, he's going to fit into your culture. He's going to fit into your chemistry, and he will do whatever is asked of him to win. If you need him to go out and drop 30 because of injuries, he can go out and drop 30. All right, if you need him just to defend the other team's best player and not focus on scoring, he can go and do that and excel. This guy is an extremely selfless player, extremely selfish. He doesn't care about the numbers. You can tell by the way this man plays that it's all about winning. And Golden State has, done a good job of just finding not just good players or hidden gems, but Golden State's done a good job of finding winners, players who can come in and excel in any role that they are given. And again, I feel like out of all the players on this Golden State team, he has the most difficult job because his job can change on a night in, night out basis. If Steph's having a bad shooting night, then we need him to step up and have a bigger shooting night, and he can do that. If Draymond Green is struggling on defense or is in foul trouble, he can step up and defend at an elite level. All right, and then he doesn't need to dribble, he doesn't need to ball a lot. He can score anytime you need him. Again, this is a guy that any team in the NBA would love to have. The Warriors. He's coming off a ACL injury. Hopefully he can bounce back, and I'm really curious to see what this Warriors team can do once they get all of their players back to 100%, because again, nobody in the NBA wants to see a healthy Stephen Klay or the Draymond Green, and even more talent because of the NBA draft. So this Warriors team is going to be loaded going into the 2021 team. They were able to develop some young players this year, so their bench is actually going to be solid, and they still have their player exception, so they should be able to sign a veteran this upcoming season. And like I said, from what I'm hearing, they're looking to add a player like a Dwight Howard to the roster. So again, if they can complete their team, fill that bench out, I see them along with Klay Thompson being healthy again, back in championship form, contending for an NBA title next year. So again, nobody's talking about him, but because of this man right here, teams like the Lakers, teams like the Clippers need to be warned right now that you need to watch out for the Golden State Warriors, just primarily because this man is going to be healthy. So we got Klay Thompson at number 4 on the list. So now we're going into my number 3 player on the list. That's Bradley Beal, man. We can't deny or take away from what this man can do on the basketball court. He's been in a really bad situation in Washington, mainly because of injuries. We saw John Wall go down. As soon as it looked like Washington was taking that next step to get better, we saw John Wall go down. We saw a lot of internal team dysfunction with Marcin Gortat and some of those other guys like Trevor Ariza. It's just been dysfunction. We even saw dysfunction with Otto Porter. So again, there have been a lot of things outside of Bradley Beal's control that have just kind of thwarted the team's success. But that does not take away from what this man can do on the court. Extremely elite point guard. Extremely high basketball IQ. He can make plays when you need him. He can make big shots when you need him. His range is unlimited. He can basically do everything on the court. And he's right on the brink of being a superstar in the league. The only thing that's preventing him from being a superstar is his team's ability to actually win. If his team could win more, if they could win more games, if he could find more success in the NBA, then he would be getting more credit. But as it stands right now, his teams have fell short with or without John Wall. There's just been a lot of internal dysfunction, so leadership could be an issue down there. And again, whenever there's a leadership issue, you have to look to the best players on the team, John Wall and Bradley Beal. So I have to take that in consideration when I'm looking at the best of the best. But with regards to skill and production, there's not too many shooting guards in the NBA who can produce more than him on a night in and out basis. And the best thing about him, man, this man is an Iron Man. He's consistently going out, playing a lot of games. All right, he takes care of his body. He's not out there getting hurt. And he's not shortchanging the fans, even in seasons where we know the Washington Wizards don't have a shot. This man is still going out there putting his body on the line. Now, he has said that he's sitting out for the remainder of the 1920 season due to a shoulder injury. But again, I won't knock him for that. Going down to play in that bubble in a meaningless tournament that's not really going to amount to much anyway. I think it was a good idea for him to sit out, get back to 100%, see what the Wizards can do in the draft, and hopefully they can improve that team. I like the last draft pick that they had, Rui Hachimura. I don't think it's enough. Hopefully they can build on that going into next year, but we'll just have to see. But again, Bradley Beal at number 3, extremely elite level point guard, who only a bright future ahead of him. All right, so now I got my number 2 guard. My number 2 shooting guard. This is probably going to be very controversial to a lot. I have James Harden at number 2. Now, a lot of people are first thing they're going to say is, how is James Harden not number 1? James Harden is the best scoring shooting guard in the NBA. He's the best scoring guard in the NBA right now. Now, again, when KD comes back, that could change. But as it stands right now, he's one of the best one-on-one scorers in the NBA. And you can complain about his game. You can complain about him kicking his feet out. You can complain about, him flopping. At the end of the day, he finds a way to get it done. Man, this man's had, I think, 2 or 3 60-point triple-doubles. I mean, you can think 60-point triple-doubles. That's not easy. That means you have extremely high usage. And then not just extremely high usage, but it's actually effective because that means you're getting double-digit assists off. You're still able to rebound. Now, the knocks on James Harden's game is that he doesn't have a complete game. We've seen him go to sleep all the way on defense sometimes, not even give an effort on very basic and very simple plays where he could easily defend or just foul the guy. But that's probably the only knock that you can have on this man's game. We've seen bigs try to post him up. He can play pretty solid post defense. But with regards to playing transition defense or on-ball defense against guards, that's non-existent in this game. But he definitely makes up for that with his scoring punch and what he can do offensively. The only knock that I have on James Harden, the only knock that I would have is, again, for me it comes down to leadership. You have an opportunity, you have a Game 7 against the Golden State Warriors where you've been outplaying them the entire series. And then you go out in a Game 7 and you allow your team to jack up an absurd amount of three-point shots. And on that night, for whatever reason, the shots weren't going in. And a good leader would have said, you know what, it's enough of this shooting. It's time for us to find a way to get to the basket so we can just finish his team off. The Houston Rockets were the better team that year. They had better chemistry. Chris Paul did get hurt. But again, what I like to see is when players get hurt, can you step up? And I think James Harden missed a very, very, very good opportunity to step up and lead a team where no one could say it was because of Chris Paul, where no one could say it was because another superstar was on your team. He had a prime opportunity to do that, and he gave it away because James Harden, along with Mike D'Antoni, allowed his team to jack up a record-setting number of threes, and on that night, they just happened to be off. And they were eliminated by the Golden State Warriors. So I got James Harden, an elite, probably one of the greatest scorers in NBA history, at number 2 on my list. And then if you know James Harden is number 2, then it's easy to guess who my number 1 guy is. My number 1 guy on this list is Paul George of the Los Angeles Clippers. Now, why do I have Paul George number 1 on this list? Because he's a complete player. And what I like, and again, this is just my list, but what I like with players is, can I drop you in any system and will your game still be effective? I don't think James Harden can get dropped into any system and have the same effectiveness on the court because he dominates the ball so much. Paul George with the Indiana Pacers, dominant, found his role and was able to dominate and be the best player on that team. When he left the Pacers, he went to OKC. When he went to OKC, he was found a way to be dominant in his role with whatever the coach gave him. And not just be dominant, he was an MVP candidate as well. Alongside Russell Westbrook, a player that a lot of people feel is extremely hard to play with, because of his inconsistency and because he's not a very disciplined player. So so for him to go over to OKC and still find a way to be one of the top 5 players in the NBA, again, even and along with shoulder injuries, that's a great accomplishment in and of itself. So Paul George is, now currently with the Clippers, again, having another great season. Hopefully he can stay healthy. I hear that his shoulders are both healed up due to this lapse in time because of the pandemic. So hopefully we can see the best of Paul George. But when this man is 100% healthy, locked in, and ready to go on the right team, and again, you can put this man on any team in the NBA. You can plug him in immediately, and he could be one of the best players on your team again. When I'm looking at players like James Harden, we've seen DeMar DeRozan, players like him struggle when he got traded. We have players like Donovan Mitchell who, on a night-in, night-out basis, can't be consistent. Drew Holiday injuries. Man, this guy right here, through it all, through injuries, through different coaches, through different teams, different types of teammates, different systems, everywhere he's been, he still found a way to be one of the top, not just offensive players in the league, but one of the top defensive players on this league. He's a complete player. He does it on both ends. That's why I got to give him the edge over James Harden, because I feel like he has more value to any given team. Again, James Harden, great stat lines, but again, I want to know, what is your impact? What is your impact? If your shot's not falling, are you still making an impact? With James Harden, if his shot's not falling, is he still having an impact? Or is he just still chucking up shots? With Paul George, if his shot's not falling, the one thing I know with Paul George is that he's defending at an elite level. He can make plays at an elite level. All right, he can take tough shots. He can take the game-winning shot. So he can do everything that James Harden can do, but in a more balanced fashion. Because again, James Harden is a bit of overkill with regards to scoring. James Harden will score 40 on any given night when we really only need you to score 28 to 30. Keep the ball moving, all right? The extra points is just overkill. He does stay in late in games to get to certain point totals. He does chase triple doubles. I've seen that. Again, I haven't seen that with Paul George. Paul George is just a natural shooting guard. He's because of his length, because the NBA is starting to play small ball now. He's been thrust into that small forward position from time to time, but naturally he's a natural shooting guard. Great shot making ability, being able to extend his range past the 3-point line. He can play off the dribble. He has all the moves off the dribble. He has a good back to the basket game. A great face-up game. Again, he can do everything that you need a great shooting guard to do. So this rounds out my list. Of the top shooting guards in the NBA. This is my top 15 shooting guards in the NBA. Hey, I want you guys to let me know, what do you think about this list? What do you think about this list? How do you feel about Paul George being number one? Who would you have at number one? I know a lot of people will have James Harden, but again, it's to each his own. Make sure you go into the comments. Why should somebody be at a certain position? Why not? Let me know. Again, it's all theory based. We can all go off of likes and dislikes of what we like to see in the game. But again, this is my list right here. Top shooting guards in the NBA. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the video, you guys. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. This was definitely a highly requested video. If you were one of the few people who sent me a list of players, if your list matches mine, then you will be the winner of that $100 Visa gift card. I think I only received about 17 different lists. So I'm going to go look over those lists. I'm going to compare it to mine. Hopefully we have a winner. If not, then we'll have to move on to the next position, which is probably going to be point guards, and hopefully we can get a winner there. All right, but it's been FYF Sports, another very informative video. Hope you guys enjoyed the list, but it's FYF Sports.